My Lord and my God, I firmly believe that you are here, that you see me, that you hear me. I adore you with profound reverence. I ask your pardon for my sins and grace to make this time of prayer fruitful. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me. Well, today, our gospel passage, as we're approaching these last 2 days before Lent begins, and this last little section of ordinary time, we have a very short and actually very ordinary gospel passage. We hear that the Pharisees came forth and began to argue with Jesus, seeking a sign from heaven to test him. And he sighed from the depth of his spirit and said, "Why does this generation seek a sign? Amen, I say to you, no sign will be given to this generation." And then he left them, got into the boat again, and went off to the other shore. And that's it. That's the entire gospel passage that we have to meditate upon in the liturgy today. But it's a real human experience and something particularly in our day and age that we can be very familiar with. The Pharisees come forward basically as soon as Jesus lands on the shore. We're told from the earlier passage that this is in the region of Dalmanutha, where Jesus just had multiplied the loaves and the fish for the crowd of 5,000, not including the women and children. And when he gets back there, they come forward and they just start arguing with him. It's interesting, Jesus here, you don't even say anything before they start arguing. You just land on the shore and up come the Pharisees and they just start arguing that they're demanding a sign. And how many of us have ever had the experience where we walk in the door or we arrive to a location? Parents and spouses have this all the time. Priests have it very much too. That you just walk in the door and all of a sudden, without even someone saying hello, it's, "This is wrong. This is broken. Why didn't you do this? How come you're late? How come X, Y, or Z?" Any number of things can happen. And oftentimes, maybe we say something like, "Hello, good to see you too. Let me get in the door. I want to take my jacket off." Or sometimes we can respond a little less charitably. But it's a very normal human experience, unfortunately, where without even saying hello, someone just wants to start arguing with us or complaining. And that's what Jesus has here. And we hear Jesus that what you do is you sigh from the depth of your spirit. You are so frustrated with their lack of understanding, Jesus, that you sigh from the depth of your spirit and you just respond, "Why does this generation seek a sign? Amen, I say to you, no sign is going to be given to this generation." And you get in the boat and you leave. And it's a very simple response. Again, this is not a back and forth argument. Jesus lands. They immediately try to pick a fight with him. Jesus, you sigh, you experience this deep frustration, and you just leave. That's it. You give a one-liner, and then you get in the boat, and you go somewhere else, which is actually living out what you told the apostles to do, Jesus, which is when they get somewhere and they're not received, shake the dust off your feet and move on to another spot. And so this culture of argument, and not just rational argument, but rather just accusatory argument and cold-hearted argument. This is evident in a way that could make us want to sigh from the depth of our spirit. Anytime that maybe we stumble into the comment section on social media. I've never actually looked at the comments on the YouTube postings of 10 Minutes with Jesus, but maybe even there can be some mean-spirited comments. Definitely on other forms of social media as well. Someone posts something and then just the mean-spirited comments can begin. And again, just like the Pharisees here, the people who normally argue in comment sections of social media, no offense, aren't actually interested in the argument. Sometimes, maybe. Sometimes. But for the majority of the population, it's just mean. It can just be very mean. And it could be very close-minded. And that it can cause people to just sigh from the depth of their spirit. There's a nice post on social media or something, and then you get a nasty, very narrow-minded comment, and you could just want to sigh from the depth of your spirit. And Jesus, you identify with us in that. You share that with us. We are called to be salt and light. We're called to be apostolic. And there is a reality that even comment sections of social media are apostolic territory. And sometimes things can be engaged, but oftentimes we're not going to win an argument in the comment sections of social media. We're not going to win an argument in ways that people are not even interested in the conversation. But that doesn't mean that we don't engage it in a different way. Jesus, you sigh from the depth of your spirit, you say a one-liner, leave your own comment in the comment section, and then you leave. You just get out of there. And so we don't want to engage on those terms. I believe it was Mark Twain who said the line, "Never argue with a foolish person because they will drag you down to their level and then they'll beat you with experience." So we never want to argue on those terms because we'll get dragged down into the mud of that. And then the people that are on there are way better at being vicious in these things than we are, and so they'll beat us out of experience. We don't want to engage in those terms. In this, there's a very beautiful example of a French couple from the early part of the 20th century, Jacques and Reza Maritain. They were philosophers, and they were very famous converts to the Catholic faith in the intellectual time and place of France in their day and age. But they were steeped in philosophy that was trained, as Reza later explained in her autobiography memoirs, it was a philosophy that was trained to destroy, trained to just knock down arguments and to nitpick and not actually be open to truth. And then when they met a Catholic gentleman named Leon Blois, he didn't try to argue with them, she says. It was actually what led to their conversion. That he didn't try to argue with them because their intellects had been trained to destroy. Rather, he presented them with the model of holiness, with the model of the saints. And that's what did it for them. Not arguing on their terms because their intellects had been so trained to destroy, but rather being presented with the light and the model of holiness. And so we don't want to argue on those terms of people whose minds have been trained to destroy, of these Pharisees who don't even let Jesus get in the door, but they just immediately start demanding signs. And there have been signs aplenty at this point in the gospel. Rather, we don't want to engage on those terms. Sometimes when someone wants to engage us in that way, Jesus, you maybe want us to just step aside. But then we engage in a different way, with a model of holiness, with charity, by being kind, with a smile, with the example of the saints, in the right time and in the right place, not necessarily in the terms of those arguments that may occur. This just doesn't happen on social media. It can happen in family settings. It can happen in school settings, where there are people, Jesus, that we encounter in our daily lives that they just want to argue, and they're not actually interested in the truth. And in those settings, we need to present not arguments on their terms, but rather the model of holiness. And if we do need to sigh from the depth of our spirit, if we do get frustrated, okay, you identify with us in that. And then you call us to still be apostolic, maybe to move on to someone else for this time, maybe to do something else right now, or maybe to just show the patience of your love. We'll ask our mother, the model of patience, to help us in this, to be apostolic, but to be very creative in how we do it. I thank you, my God, for the good resolutions, affections, and inspirations which you have communicated to me in this meditation. I ask your help in putting them into effect. My Immaculate Mother, Saint Joseph, my Father and Lord, my guardian angel, intercede for me.